video 999 we made a battery pack out of nickel metal hydrides, these things here that were given to me by the company Highquick. So Highquick sent me about 20, in fact there were 20 of these. They're 1.2 volts at 10,000 milliamp hours, which is pretty awesome really when you think about it. But we made a battery pack out of them at 12 volts, and to do that we used this thing here because I've got a tab welder. It's a cheap Chinese machine, but it does the job. However, it wasn't that cheap. I mean, it wasn't that expensive, but it wasn't that cheap either. And what I thought I'd do was go through how to make your own battery tab welder in case you want to make a battery pack and don't want to spend on this. Now, to make a battery tab welder actually is a piece of cake. It really is. All you're really doing is using a 12 volt fully charged battery, a starter solenoid. Now you can get these off a car. If you take the starter motor out, you'll find this is attached to the starter motor. But you can also get them separate for things like motorcycles. Now they need to be able to handle above 200 amps. So any motorcycle above a 250cc is going to have an independent starter solenoid that you can use. They're about £15 or so. So we need a starter solenoid, we need a battery, and we need a push switch. There's one of those switches that's only on when you push it. It doesn't click. So you give it a push and it'll make the switch, you'll let it go and it'll stop making the switch. It's fairly robust, but you don't need it that robust. This is going to handle extremely low amps, because what this really is a relay. It's actually more like a contactor. So the main power actually goes through here, and you're just handling a little bit of power on this switch. Then we need a couple of prongs that were going to be the point contacts, and you can use a bit of copper wire, or you can use these things. These are copper nails, and we're going to use those copper nails to be our contactor points, and a little bit of connecting block to connect everything together. There's quite a lot of amps going to be going through this, so one good thing is to grab yourself some battery cables, and these will handle the ampage that we're going to put through those. So altogether the thing should cost you about £40 or so if you have the battery. Anyway, let's get on and make that. And that's what it looks like when it's done. Now we need to put some heavy duty cables in there, so this is where our battery cables come in. Just snip off the end, clean them up and stick one black one in there and one red one in there. Once you've done that, you need to make a handle for it. I've cut a bit of acrylic here because I've got it, but anything non-conductive will do. A bit of wood, whatever you've got. I drill a hole through there so that I can bolt the connection terminal on, then fasten the connection terminal on with a 4mm bolt, and then what we need to do is make a little handle, and we're going to just wrap that with a bit of electrician's tape. Okay, so that's the business end done. Obviously what we do is we hold it like that, we press it into position while we operate the switch. Once you've done the business end, the negative obviously gets attached to the negative of the battery, and the positive is going to get attached to the solenoid. Now you'll notice when I took the solenoid off, I actually kept the wires in the right position. So this is the one that went to the battery positive, so that will just get wired back into the battery positive. This one here is what goes into the business end of our tab welder, so the positive gets connected to there. That's the switch. So obviously the next thing we need to do is connect those wires up like I just described and make a lug to connect that positive. Now you can buy lugs to fit obviously, but I actually quite like to make them out of this stuff. It's a bit of 10mm microbore pipe, copper pipe. I cut a length off, flatten it, drill a hole through, in this case it's 8mm, feed that wire through and crimp it on. So there it is done. Now you've got to remember that through the body of this is where the return path is. So I've taken a cable, just screwed into one of the spare screw holes, up to the negative terminal, and that's going to be my return. The positive terminal has another cable in it coming to the switch, and then that switch wire goes back to the original wire position. So we pop those onto the battery terminals, put that onto the bit we want to tab weld, press that button and we'll get a tab weld. So let's connect up the battery and weld something. Okay, I've clearly tested this before coming on camera and there it is. But just so you can see it actually working. And there we go, a weld. And there is our homemade tab welder. A real piece of cake to make your own tab welder. Now I used this, which is the starter relay, but it's basically a contactor. So if you had a contactor, you could use that as well as this. I only used this because I had it, and it didn't cost me anything. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching.